Okay, so for this session, I will be covering a couple of different ways to access the interactive development environments, mainly Jupyter's and Spider, and possibly also VS Code, through on-demand. There's two ways to do this, or there are two different sort of interfaces that different facilities use. So Cosmos and Dardel use the desktop on demand with GFX launcher. That was developed by LUNARC's department head. And then the other one is the dedicated online portal Open OnDemand, which is what Kebnekaise and Alvis use. So there's on-demand desktop, and that uses so that's the overlying architecture, and then the GFX launcher, sort of the GUI interface with that underlying architecture. And that's what's being used on Cosmos and Dardel. So you might hear me say on-demand app. Occasionally you'll hear me say GFX launcher. That just refers to the GUI for the on-demand desktop. Okay, so we'll go over when is it right for your job, and which interface to use on which resource, and how to set the job parameters for your application. So whether you're using the on-demand desktop at Cosmos and Dardel, or the Open OnDemand at Kebnekaise and Alvis, the main purpose of these is to run sort of small to intermediate size jobs interactively and interactive. Yeah, you're running you want to run these for small interactive jobs with small to medium amounts of computing resources. So by that I mean like a job that runs up to maybe a day, although certain centers may allow longer. And typically these would be jobs that are confined to a single node, although there are some times when multiple nodes are possible. But generally, that's what I mean by small to intermediate. If you have a longer job that requires an interactive interface to submit, you're going to need to keep track of the wall time limits for your given facility. Some of them, particularly the ones that run Open OnDemand, will only let you run 12 hours at a time. On-demand applications can only be accessed by either ThinLink or the dedicated web portal. So SSH, you won't get to it. For these, and I'll show you one here on Cosmos. What Cosmos has available for Python is Spider, Jupyter Lab, and Jupyter Notebook. Generally, we recommend you to use Jupyter Lab instead of Jupyter Notebook because Jupyter Notebook is sort of being phased out and merged into Jupyter Lab. If you're really comfortable with VS Code, you can also find that here under Applications-Development. I'll mainly be focusing on these Python-specific ones. So I will also, just a fair warning for Dardel, while it technically has on-demand applications available, there are only 30 ThinLink licenses available for the entire facility at any given time. Talks are ongoing about whether and by how much to increase that number. But until then, we advise using SSH with X forwarding and use the sort of interactive command line methods that were discussed by Birgitte and Björn. So I'm not going to cover Dardel in much detail. Just assume that if you are lucky enough to get onto Dardel, then most of the applications work pretty much the same way as they do the way I demonstrate them on Cosmos. For Kebnekaise and Alvis, I'll be demonstrating the on-demand portal for Kebnekaise. And it works pretty similar to what's on Alvis. I only have time to really demonstrate 2 of them. So let's talk about how to start the on-demand interface. For Cosmos, it's very simple. You can see that what I'm sharing is a FinLink window on Cosmos. So this is the desktop that this is the main desktop that you'll be brought to. Sometimes you'll have a file browser icon over here, sometimes not. That's kind of flaky, but anyway. So you just go to applications, and then you scroll through the applications menu to this applications-Python, and then you select whichever one of these that you want. Keep in mind that the only applications that are on-demand applications are these here with that say applications dash and then Python or whatever else that you want to open. So the Python modules are under Python. VS Code is under development. And then, let me see here. So then there are also a few terminals here. I will briefly show how to open an interactive terminal, because if you have a pip installed Python environment, so as opposed to a Conda environment, then the only way that you can start JupyterLab or Spider with that environment is by starting it by loading those modules separately in one of these interactive terminals and then starting JupyterLab from there. And that would work more like how JupyterLab is started on, say, Pele. Yeah, so if you start any of these other applications that are not prefixed with applications dash, it may launch on the front end and make us admins angry. And also, just in case, if you're new to Cosmos, sometimes brand new users find that the applications menu is missing anything to do with applications. That usually indicates a problem with your bash RC file. Sometimes that resolves if you just quit and then start a new session. Other times if you're not a new user, you might want to go to a terminal and run this GFX menu -- force. And if that still doesn't resolve your issue, then you contact support. Now for Kebnekaise, the way you start it is to open this on-demand portal in your browser. And the page looks like this. So that's where you find it. On Alvis, it's similar. It's another on-demand portal, like so. I don't think I actually have an account on Alvis, so I couldn't demonstrate this one, but it works very similarly to HPC2N. Oops, sorry, scrolling around too much. So to log into the HPC2N on-demand web portal, you just click the login. You sign in with your, I believe this is my username, and your password. Come on. And then this would be here. Now, and then you end up with this. Once you're logged in, you end up at this little dashboard, and that sometimes you'll get a message of the day that has like a notification about old any sort of ongoing or past alerts that might disrupt your usage. This one's pretty old, so you don't have to worry about it. And then where you want to go to next is interactive apps, and then you find whichever app that you want to start in this menu. So I am going to click Jupyter Notebook. Let's see where we are. Okay. So now that we're up to speed on showing you where to find the applications, now I'll go through setting up job parameters. So I'll demonstrate this with, this time I'll do Spider. Just keep in mind that Jupyter Lab works pretty much the same. So when I click the application, it pops up this little menu. This is the GFX launcher right here. So you see this lets you set a number of resource specifications. You see wall time, and you can select from this drop-down menu, or you can type in longer times. Since this is running on a CPU, I believe this one will let you run up to 5 days. For applications that run on a GPU, like this Jupyter Lab GPU, that one has a wall time limit of 2 days or 48 hours. So then you can set the wall time. Under requirements, the default is 1 task per node. This is sufficient for the types of examples that I would be running tomorrow. If you want to use Spider or Jupyter Lab for tomorrow, although you may want to set a longer wall time. If you need more resources or different resources, then you want to click this little gear icon. That pulls up a second tab with resource specification. Here you can set the name of your job, so you can find it more easily in an SQ menu, for instance. You can increment the number of tasks per node if you want. I don't actually need to do that. You can also change the amount of memory per core. This is useful if you have shared memory programming where you need one particular core, or where you need individual cores to have larger memory. With that, you can steal the memory from neighboring cores. However, you will be charged for the full number of nodes that are, or the full number of cores that are used this way. So if you have to use 2 cores that each have double this amount of memory, you're still effectively consuming the memory of 4 cores, and so you'll be charged as such. Even though you're only actually using 2 cores, you're draining 2 more. So you'll be charged for 4. You can also select this if you need a full exclusive node. And importantly for this session, this is where you can choose your reservation. So today is HPC Python day 2. So I'll select that. And then once you've selected OK, then you can go back over here and change your project. This one is 7-106. And then that is pretty much it for this one. I thought this one allowed you to use Anaconda environments. Well, anyway, you can start, or you can click start, and then it will, once you click start, this little green box here, this little gray box will turn green once you've finished going through the queue, and then the application will load. And typically this spider will say whichever application you were last working on. So this was like a temporary matplotlib example. One thing that you want to note is that this little window here will stay open in the background. Do not close it. You need it to stay open in order to both track your usage, and because if you do close it, the whole application goes away immediately. One other thing I want to draw your attention to, if you go to Jupyter Lab, you'll have most of the same options, except that there is one more little tab down here called job settings. And this here allows you to, you can technically select additional modules, but this is kind of this feature isn't really mature yet. So when you need to make sure that you keep this Anaconda 3 because Jupyter Lab as a whole depends on it. The other thing that you can do here is that you can select use custom Conda environment, and then you can select from this, and that will enable this drop-down menu. And then if you have Conda environments available, then you can select from those. Like I use this TensorFlow one. And then the same thing, if you click start, this will stay gray as long as you're in queue, and then green once it starts, and then once it starts, it'll open whatever you were last working on. One more thing while this is open, if for some reason this doesn't open or something goes wrong, then you can go to this more here. And this is helpful for troubleshooting because, well, first of all, you can look through the script if you want to. This is useful for later if you want to transfer some of your some of your settings to a batch script when you're ready to automate and move away from interactive usage. But the other handy thing is this log tab. If something goes wrong, then you check over here and see if there are any error messages, like maybe couldn't connect to the kernel or something to that effect. So that's all well and good for Cosmos. And again, this is very similar. If you're lucky enough to get access to Dardo through ThinLink, then the on-demand applications work very similarly. The main difference will be that when you go to the applications menu, instead of seeing applications dash, it will say PDC dash. But what all of this is doing is basically this little GFX launcher GUI, what it's doing is that it is helping you construct this script. And this script is making the GUI, making this whole interface run on a compute node. And in fact, you can even check in the log and see exactly which node that you're on. This one is running on Cosmos node or compute node 136. So you can make sure that you're on a compute node this way. If you happen to be running if you run something on the front end, the node that you will be, or host name would say something like Cosmos 1 or Cosmos 2 or Cosmos 3. So those are the names of the front ends, and you don't want to be running on those. And so I will close this. And you'll notice that sometimes if you're running something like Jupyter Lab or VS Code, it might not necessarily stop when you close it. If you want to if you want to stop it and not use and recover the remainder of your wall time, you can just click stop. And that will force it to stop. And then you won't be billed for the extra time. And one more thing before I move over to Kebnekaise. If you have a pip environment instead of a Conda environment, then the way that you typically want to run Jupyter is to go to one of these terminals under Applications General. So these terminals run on the back end. Do not go to the terminal in Favorites. This one runs on the front end. And in fact, if you open it, you'll see it says Cosmos 2 here. They'll say Cosmos 1 through 3, 1, 2, or 3, and that will tell you that you're running on the front end. So instead, you want to go to Applications General. Generally, you want to choose CPU Terminal if you can. It has a little bit less support for Jupyter Lab, but it will still open. And then it's a very similar interface. Typically, you're not allowed to change the resource, but you can change the project and go through the other resource specifications and then click Start. And then you'll pull up and then it'll pull up a terminal that looks like this. And then you can see here where it says compute node. Again, I'm on 136. That means you're on a compute node, and now you can load whatever you need. So like, I don't know. I would need GCC 13.2.0 and maybe Seaborn. Oops. 13.2. Okay, and then email Jupyter Lab. Let's see, email avail Jupyter Lab, and then, oops. Yeah, 4.2.0. And then the way that you would run, and then you would maybe activate an environment if you had one. I don't think I actually have a pip environment, but once you do, then you can you can start Jupyter Lab like this. Oops, I didn't load it. It's a little bit more complicated from here because what you have to do is you have to select one of these links and copy it into your browser. All right, so what I need to do now is I need to show you how this would work on NAISS. So here instead of going through a GFX launcher menu, you have this menu where you set your resources. So let me see, which one is it? This one? So you set your compute project here, then you set the number of hours, and the maximum is 12. And then you can select from node type, you can select any GPU or large memory. Any will get you a standard compute node. Any GPU will get you one of these GPU nodes, and unfortunately, you can't really choose which one you end up. It's just whichever one is available at the time. And if you need a large memory node, then you select large memory. And those are all the same. Then you can select from the number of cores. Let's maybe say 2. What's that? And then for runtime environment, you have a few options. If you don't know what you want to choose, just pick the system provided one. If you have one that's provided by your project or an environment that you've built yourself, you'll see it. You should see it listed in under these project provided options. I don't have any of these options, so these are grayed out. And then you also can set your working directory. By default, it's your home directory, but you can, but if you want to change it, you can either click the select path and use this file browser, like maybe say documents, and then say select path, or if you happen to know if you want to type it manually, you can also do that. And optionally, you can select this box if you have a job that is expected to take a while and you want an email when it starts, then you would select this. I'm selecting like the minimum number of hours, so it should start fairly quickly. And but you only want to select as many hours and as many cores as you absolutely need, because the more resources you demand, the longer it takes. Typically, the longer you spend in queue. So then, once you've set all these settings, whichever way you're happy with, then you just click launch. And then as long as it's in queue, this little top bar will be blue. and this will say either waiting or starting. And when it's ready, this will turn green, like that. And now what you can do is that you just click Connect to Jupyter. If you clicked VS Code instead, you would click Connect to VS Code. The button is always going to be connect to something or activate something. And then from here, if you want to click this, that creates a new notebook, and then you can do whatever you want here. Import NumPy, NumPy.arange 1 through 12. What the? That's strange. Is it because I didn't select the kernel? Sorry. You can also open your own, you can also open a bash terminal in here. So, I mean, just realized this says Jupyter Lab instead of Jupyter Notebooks. So this has already been upgraded to Jupyter Lab, even though it's titled Jupyter Notebook. And I can also close this, but what you'll notice is that even though I've closed the window, it still says it's running. And the reason for that is that this is to enable you to reconnect for as long as you've booked with your wall time. If you are done with your job and you want to recover the wall time that you've and not be billed for it, then what you need to do is you need to click this delete button. And that's so when you click delete, it'll ask, are you sure? Yes, it was a teeny job that I wasn't actually doing anything with. And now it says you have no active sessions. And now that means instead of being, so I requested an hour, but I only used it for 3 minutes. And now, so I would only be billed for 3 minutes if I were a regular HPC user. You can, let's see, what else do we have to cover? So
Can I ask a quick question?
yes.
Maybe you said it. I was coding along, so I didn't listen very carefully. But when I am in the Jupyter Notebook, can I from there select a virtual environment like a kernel, or how do I build kernels?
Yes. So if you have a kernel, then when you go to Jupyter Notebook, you select it from this list of runtime environments. I don't have any runtime environments on this machine because this isn't something that I regularly use. But
Okay.
if you have built an environment, it should appear under for you. If you've built it yourself, it would be under user provided.
So once you started the Jupyter Notebook, you cannot select kernel.
After you've started, I'm not sure. I know that, but you can select the kernel. You can select the kernel by name from here.
You can change, at least at HPC2N, you can change the kernel within Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab. When it's running, there's a way to pick a kernel in there.
Yeah, okay. It was just blank in my. Maybe it was not set up properly.
Maybe it was not set up, yes, because I think it needs to be set up in a specific way to be accessible within Jupyter Lab. We have a description of how to do it at the HPC2N documentation, but
that's good enough.
Okay, I'll find the links.
Yeah. So why is this sticky? And it's pretty similar for VS Code. You select your project. There might be alternative versions of this in the future, but for right now, there's only one option. Again, with your runtime environment, if you don't know, just pick the one that's system provided. If you have one that's provided by your PI, you'd go under project provided. And if you have one that you've set up yourself, you would go under user provided. The node type options are the same as as they were for JupyterLab. Same story with the number of cores in the working directory. All of this stuff works the same way as it does for JupyterLab. And if you've set up your own environment that might, for instance, have a, like for instance, maybe you've installed Spider in a Conda environment, then what you might consider doing instead is going to the Kebnekaise desktop, and then you select your preferred desktop environment. Mate is usually a good choice if you're not super familiar with Linux. Either one is, they're both kind of, neither one of them are my preference, but Mate is usually a decent second option. And again, you select a compute project, number of hours, number of cores, any type of node, and then click launch. And again, it works pretty much the same way as it did with the Jupyter Notebook or /lab and VS Code. This is blue until it's ready to run, and then you click you can click launch the Kebnekaise desktop, and it will open a separate window. And I have not played with these compression and image quality sliders, but I assume that those you can adapt to your whoa. I am going to close that and turn that up. And maybe, I don't know if I can adjust, how much that can adjust. So this is not the ideal ratio, but you can play around with the proportions, and I should not have clicked that. I was trying to click menu. Then you go under here, and then you can go to, let's see, where would it be? Not here. Maybe Mate terminal. And as you can see, if you open a terminal in this session, you're automatically put on a compute node. And so from here you might want to run things that are that you would run from a shell script, or maybe start a custom environment, or maybe Spider. I think the available versions of Spider on this are very old and not recommended. Let me see what versions there are.
Very old, if it's even there. No, it's only on the Intel nodes, because we haven't updated it at all. So it's only on if you're on that login, if you're on one of the Intel nodes, if you're otherwise not. So, and that one is old.
Then maybe you have if I can spell.
We don't use Anaconda at SPC2N.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
We actively unrecommend it.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. So anyway, that's the so this is the interactive desktop. And so then if I close this again, again, closing the window doesn't actually stop the job. You have to click delete in order to not use up all of the wall time that you've been all the wall time that you initially specified. All right, let's see. Is there anything else that we have yet to cover? So these are so that was desktop on demand and open on demand. Just as a reminder, what these tools are good for is that you're effectively running an interactive interface without having to submit without having to type up the resource specifications and go through the interactive command and SSH into a compute node and all of that stuff. It's a more intuitive interface. Somebody unwound some of my changes. Anyway, so that was interactive on demand and on demand desktop. Any questions?